What's up, comic book fans, and welcome to Comics Icons. Now, JJ, what they call me, and today we got more Fall of the House of X. This time with Fall of the House of X issue number 2. And oh my God, y'all, this is such a dope story. And the end of it, you probably didn't see coming. And if you need to catch up to figure out how we got here, I'll leave a card up top to issue number 1. And there'll also be a link to the playlist at the end of this video. But as a quick little refresher, in the last issue of Fall of the House of X, The Trial of Cyclops, we saw him have an interesting conversation with Dr. Alia Gregor and Karima Shapander. We also saw Karima send Nimrod to go destroy Krakoa, but she also mentioned that they'd celebrate on Sentinel City, which seemingly got a reaction from Dr. Gregor unbeknownst to Omega Sentinel. We also saw Nimrod get covered in amber after unsuccessfully trying to get Krakoa. Then we saw the issue end with Polaris traveling to nowhere to recruit the Brood before going off to war with Orchis. So if you guys are ready to see the start of this mutant war, then you guys know what time it is. Let's get it. So we picked this issue up with Polaris, who's brought Nowhere, the head of the dead celestial filled with the Brood, face to face with this Orchis space station. And on the station, MODOK and Dr. Stasis are seen in a panic because they know that the combination of Polaris's powers and the size of this celestial head, and it quickly overwhelmed their shields. And we then see that's exactly what happens as Polaris breaks through and sends the Brood to overtake the Orchis crew. And the Brood absolutely demolished these guys. Man, y'all, just like her father Magneto, this new master of magnetism is an absolute badass. Then we see an Orchis shuttle that had launched and headed for the space station before they had been attacked. And in it, we see that Wolverine is their prisoner. Then one of the soldiers thinks that they should just throw Wolverine out of the airlock. But this one guy, Bob, who's the smallest guy there, he doesn't want to release Wolverine because he wants that bounty that Dr. Stasis put on him. Meanwhile, one of his comrades mentions that the guy that actually captured Wolverine is like half a foot taller than Bob. And that's when this big guy goes to speak, and we quickly realize that something's not quite right about this dude, as Wolverine then rolls his eyes saying he knew this wouldn't work. And that's when we see that the big guy was Colossus. The whole thing was a setup, and Colossus then frees Wolverine, and then they absolutely go to town on these guys that have no chance of hell of surviving. We even see Nightcrawler teleport a guy into space. Sheesh. But once this shuttle docks onto the space station, Nightcrawler's mission is to find Firestar. But these guys are caught off guard when they see that they're being assisted by the Brood. Then they see Polaris, who's looking to kill both Dr. Stasis and Firestar. But Nightcrawler lets her in on the fact that Firestar was a double agent this whole time. That Jean Grey had implanted memories into Dr. Stasis before she had died. And just like back when Shadowcat found that info out, Polaris had the exact same reaction, that that's the most Jean Grey thing ever. Then we see Emma Frost, who's taken a couple of Orchis soldiers as her pet dogs. But she lets us know that Shadowcat is in Paris to help out Cyclops. She also asks Logan if he's in need of any assistance with his part. But as always, we know Wolverine, he's got it handled. Then she asks how the rescue of Krakoa is going. And that's when we find out that Juggernaut has that task, who notices that Orchis has already captured Krakoa, but it's not a problem for old Jugs, who's also snatched up one of Cable's guns. So he pretty easily handles his business and is able to free Krakoa, before he's then asking for a pickup. Then as Emma requests for Rogue and Gambit to go ahead and pick up Juggernaut and Krakoa, we find out that they have a side mission of their own, one given to them by Destiny, but much to the dismay of Emma, who wasn't aware of that mission. But then Emma is quickly assisted by Sync, who's using the powers of Iceman. Then we see Rogue and Gambit back at the old Xavier mansion, and we find out that Rogue had hidden away Manifold and put him into stasis. Destiny had informed her that without him, mutants had no future. She also mentions that for Manifold, it would be as if only a few moments had passed, but he's definitely gonna be pissed. Then they awake Manifold, and they let him know that he was a priority target for Orchis, so they had to hide him away, but his first reaction is that he'd been kidnapped, and he quickly lashes out on these guys. But he's then met with his sister, Latuka, who speaks with him telepathically and lets him know that what was done to him was completely necessary, that these two X-Men did not seek to wrong him, and they've actually succeeded in changing his destiny. But Latuka was unseen by Rogue and Gambit, so to them, they're kind of tripping out a little bit on Manifold, who looks crazy as hell talking to somebody else. But they then notice that Sentinels are quickly approaching, so Manifold does his thing and he teleports them away before they could get crushed by the Sentinel. Then we see Dr. Stasis, who's on the run from Logan, as he's able to get onto an escape pod and flee, but not before letting Logan know that he'd never see Firestar again if he were to kill him. Then as Polaris is able to scoop up Nightcrawler, Colossus, and Wolverine, they notice that the space station is gonna crash on Earth. But Polaris, she's able to aim it for the Southern Ocean. Then we transition to Cyclops, who's about to be executed by Omega Sentinel in Paris. And she's actually admiring the fact that Cyclops doesn't seem scared about what's about to happen. As Cyclops fills her in on a little secret, that there's a very special woman who will simply not let you kill me. Then we see Dr. Gregor, who's hit Omega Sentinel with an EMP, but she lets Cyclops know that she won't be down for long as she'll reboot any second, so they have to act quickly. But this surprises Cyclops, because I don't think this is who he thought was gonna save him. And he asks her, to what does he owe the pleasure? And she tells him that it was what he said to her back in the prison in issue number 1. And she now thinks that they might have a problem with a secret part of Orchis. There's a part of the organization that she's not been able to access after her and her husband brought Nimrod online. That there's a huge amount of resources that have no oversight, both on Earth and in space. Tell me, what do you know about Sentinel City, she asks. And ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of the issue. Man, y'all, this story to me was absolutely fire. And I'm loving where it's going right now. You don't want to go to war with the mutants. They straight up demolished in this battle with Orchis. But we know that this is only the beginning, and I'm sure that Orchis has more up their sleeves. Especially from Nimrod, who we saw still encased in amber, but was able to break free by the end of this. Now I admit it was a bit confusing to see Nimrod still encased in amber in this issue, because back in X-Men number 31, we saw Nimrod free and fighting the X-Men. But we also know that they tend to play around with the timelines in these issues, so continuity sometimes can take a hit. But man, y'all, I didn't too much care, because this was a super dope issue, and I can't wait to see what happens next. There's still some questions after this issue, like how does Juggernaut and Krakoa get away, since Rogue and Gambit had their own little side mission? And also, what happened with Shadowcat, who was supposed to be rescuing Cyclops? But shout out to Polaris. Man, y'all, she was probably the MVP of this issue for me. But I'd be interested in hearing you guys' thoughts on this issue and this series so far. And if you guys enjoyed this video and this channel, then y'all could be a tremendous help to this channel's future by donating with a super thanks. And if you're not able to do that, then you can also help out by dropping a like, share, and subscribing to Comics Icons for more icons in the comic book world. I also want to invite you guys to join the all-new channel membership called the Iconic Fan Club. and gain access to weekly live streams, loyalty badges, member shoutouts, and more. But ladies and gentlemen, it's about that time. I'm out. Peace.